Hey everybody, this is Tom from Rocket Restorations, and today we're going to show you how to put a wiring harness into a big block Mopar. So this is my 1970 Plymouth Superbird. We bought it at a state sale last summer. But one thing we kind of did a really quick thrash putting this thing together when we got it, because we just wanted to see if we can get it running and driving, and went from a shell to a running car very quickly. So we kind of used some parts that weren't 100% right for the car. So the wiring harness we used was from a 1969 B-Body instead of a 70. And the biggest difference on the two wiring harnesses are the voltage regulator. So in 1970, they started using an electronic voltage regulator, which used a special plug on there. And the 69 used a points type voltage regulator, which this went in that side, that one in the other side. So this is a 1969 harness that we used on here, and we're gonna put in the correct 70 harness. The other big difference is on the alternator. They had the 70 was a dual field, which used two posts on the back of the alternator, and in 1969 it was a single field. So that was the difference. They changed the voltage regulator when they went from electronic to, well, sorry, points to electronic. They went from dual field to a single field. So we're going to put the correct dual field harness in. The temp sender wasn't hooked up. A couple other things too. So let me walk you through putting in a harness in one of these. So first thing we're gonna do is take off the old harness to put the new one on. So we did not have a washer bottle on this yet, which I got a good used one to put on. That's a plug for horn, and there's supposed to be two plugs, but on a Roadrunner, of course, they only use the one horn, which is the beep beep horn, meep meep. But there's two plugs there because normally they have two plugs. That's for the relay right there, which is actually under the dash on a 70, I believe. And then the brown wire right there is for washer bottle pump, electronic washer bottle. Next thing to take off is the alternator wires. So that this just had the single field on it. So we're gonna take that off. And then there's a post on the back of the alternator that we need to take that nut off to get the harness off the back of the alternator. So I know this is kind of hard to see, but there's a stud right there, and that is a 7/16 nut. It's kind of sort of double nutted there. There's actually supposed to be a plastic cover over this as well, which I may or may not put on at the end here. The ignition wire bracket is kind of right in the way, so it's very hard to get a socket on there. But yeah, so nut off, bare stud, that's off like that. I'll show you what that plastic piece looks like. This is what one of those guards look like. So basically that just goes over the stud down there, and the nut goes on, tighten up, and the wiring goes up the top. This is for, like, theoretically, as a reminder, always unhook your battery when you're doing this, because if this is all hooked up and you cross the post to ground, it can spark and melt stuff. And obviously you don't want to do that. So next bit that needs to come off is the coil wires. And the size of these nuts can vary a lot, actually. This one is 3/8, and this one is actually 5/16, so which means they're not original nuts. But yeah, so back both those nuts off, and then that will be free. This inside one is actually 11/32, which, you know, I think is right. I gotta look that up. But yeah, so the one's 3/8, the other's 11/32. I'll probably try to find another nut for this one, put it together, just so they're the same, because it's just annoying when you have to get two sockets to take that off. And of course, it does matter which side you put these on. The coil actually has, see a little slot right there? So on the factory harness, they're actually slotted, so you can't mess that up. This has obviously been modified at some point, but with the new harness, you won't be able to mess this up. This side goes directly to the distributor, which again has been modified, and then this side goes to the engine harness right there. So yeah, that actually the inside one didn't need to come off at all because that wasn't part of the harness. So just ignore that type of the video. All right, so now we got to take these clips, be super, super careful with these. These clips are clips on the valve covers, and they break super duper easily. I've broken a lot of these over the years. So I'm gonna be very, very gentle taking that out, peel that all out so you can get all the wiring out of there. But this is a little tight fit. I want to do two hands so I don't mess this up. Okay, so now all the wiring is loose in the valve cover. So then you want to do, there's two for the balance resistor. Balance resistor seem to be working fine. So then all that's now officially loose. So then that's pretty much it. So then we have the plug on the firewall, which I'll show you how to take off. I know sometimes this wiring can look really intimidating. It really isn't. It's really pretty simple. It's just that much to go. And then the plug goes into the firewall connector right here. And you want to be super duper careful with these because there's 2 plastic clips that go on either side here. And it is super duper easy to break those as you're trying to pry them off. This one already has them broken off. And then there's also fusible link on there, which goes to the stud on the starter relay. So you gotta get that stud off too to get the harness off. But basically it's all loose now. So see on this one, the clip's already broken off there. These are really, really fragile. So they just snap on. You gotta bend those back to get them out of the bulkhead connector right there. Let me get that starter relay off. And Chrysler was really smart how they did this. There's actually dimples on each one of these, so you cannot mess them up. It's impossible. They only go in one way. So the top one right here is for the wiring harness, or sorry, for the wiper harness. Have different pins on different spots. See, that one's over there, that one's over there. So you can't mix these up when they go in. And then the starter relay, the nut is right there. It was a 1/2 inch nut. Then all that comes off, and then this is called the fusible link right here. The purpose of the fusible link is that is the sacrificial lamb if the wiring harness burns down. So, for example, if the alternator grounds out on the alternator, then what'll happen is it'll basically short out and start burning the harness. So it'll burn it all the way to there. And then the fusible link will basically burn out, cut wiring to where that went to, and then save the wiring harness so your entire car doesn't burn down. Don't burn your car down. That's not a good idea. Fusible link off the starter relay, and the whole harness is ready to come out. I'm going to pull it out the passenger side just so it doesn't scrape the firewall when I pull it all out. Wiring harness all pulled out. Yeah, this one had some issues, but it did a good job. So I'll label that one 1969, and if I need to have a revival project where I need a 1969 engine harness, that one's in pretty good shape. Okay, so now we're going to go to the new harness right here. So again, the biggest difference there is that is the plug-in for the electronic voltage regulator, which changes the other 2 plugs. And then on this end for the alternator, there's 2 wires for the field on the alternator instead of the single. Other than that, it should go together just the same as it did before. So see the nipples right there is exactly the same as the other one. So we just plug that right in the firewall. Then we have to plug the fusible link into the starter relay, just like it came off. And when I start, I always fish around the back and kind of go over there. We'll have to go back around the other engine over there, but let's get all this stuff together first. So that goes down. See where the nipple is on the bulkhead connector there. And I know people are going to ask where we got this. This came from Evans Wiring Harnesses. I really like these guys. There's basically 2 options for this. M&H, they come from year 1. Although I think they actually sell independently now. They used to have me exclusively through them. I think they sell through other outlets now. Their quality is pretty good. The one thing I've noticed on these is sometimes the connectors don't go all the way through. If you notice on right here, see how those connectors are not straight at all. So I'm gonna need to go through and straighten those out before they go in. So that's the biggest problem I've had with these repo harnesses. They just don't go all the way into the bulkhead connector and don't make a good connection. And they can cause resistance and cause some issues. Try to put it in, it wouldn't go on, and that's the reason why. Okay, just goes right on there until the sides clamp on right there with the plastic. Then you know it's all the way on. And then the fusible link goes right back on the stud for the starter relay there. Just like that. And then you put the nut back on, which is right here. So starter relay nut right there. Tighten up. Really doesn't have to be too tight. Okay, so next thing is voltage regulator and ballast resistor. These engine harnesses are really pretty simple. They lay out pretty nice. So voltage regulator is the plug right there. Make sure it goes on the right way. I don't even know if this voltage regulator works or not, but that goes on there and just snaps right on. I've not had a charging system on this since we put it together because there was no voltage regulator. And then ballast resistor goes there. And then another one goes there. And again, it's laid out pretty nicely so you can tell which way it's supposed to go forward on that. All right, and then this is oil pressure. So there's a can on the back here with the spade. That just goes right on top of the spade for the oil pressure sender right there. And this is the oil pressure gauge that uses that can. If it uses a idiot gauge, it uses a different one. It's a little smaller than that. But yeah, this gauge goes right over the top right there. That's the gray wire. So then you have all this wiring here. And then the tricky part is you basically have to snake it underneath all the lines and everything there, all the way to the front, which is hard to do with one hand while filming. Well, it's good when you leave notes for yourself, or Jamie leaves to me. Apparently the vacuum advance is bad on this. Good to know. Okay, so this one with all the protection on it is the temp sender. That goes over here to there, right on top of there. So on a typical 70 body, aka not a Roadrunner, these two plugs are for the dual horns. Well, on a Roadrunner, you of course have the beep beep horn. So you only use one of these. You do not use the other one. It plugs in right there. And then this brown one here is for the washer bottle, which again, I will put one in later. I just need to go find a good used one to match the patina of the car. Haven't done quite that yet. These wires right here, this one is for the coil right here. These two are for the two fields on the alternator, which is, here, let me get some different light down here. So there's a spade right there, and a spade right there on the back of the alternator for the dual fields. I don't think it matters which way these go on. It's the same either way. And this little blue wire here goes on the coil. And the same way it was on before on that side, the positive side. Negative side goes to the distributor. And this big lug right here goes on the back of the alternator right down there on the stud. And then we're almost done. There is an extra wire here, which we're not going to use. I believe that goes to the vacuum advance retard for the distributor. Slight correction to the video as I do this. So the temperature sender goes on there, but actually goes around the front, because if you go around the back of the distributor like I did before, the stud for the alternator doesn't reach the back of the alternator. The wire stud, main stud, I don't know, wherever you call it. Okay, so I want to put the stud protector on the stud, but unfortunately this wire bracket's right in the way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take that wire bracket off just so I can get this on, because I got it off with a wrench because it didn't have this, but I can't do that with this. You pretty much have to use a socket to get it off. So I'm just gonna pull that bracket off real quick. Okay, got this bracket out of the way. And then that cover goes over the stud like that. Wire goes over like that. And then there's always a lock washer that goes on first. This can be a bit of a pain because it's hard to get to anything down there with that. There's a reason why people never put these covers back on, because they're kind of in the way. All right, put the nut on, tighten it up. Okay, all tightened up and protected from, you know, shocking yourself or grounding yourself out. And then I gotta put this bracket back on here, just right back where it was. Taking this one nut off doesn't matter with the exhaust manifold torque there. And tighten that sucker back up. So I decided now is the time to put the washer bottle on. Just wanted to show you how this went together. So this is actually a correct original one. I think it's actually NOS, which, you know, for Superbird, I'm willing to use for. So basically how these go is on the original ones, they have a lug like that goes over the screw. And basically that's your ground. And then there's one wire there. And then how they work is it goes in the bottom like that in there. And then they basically sandwich in like that. So this screws in from the top and then sandwiches in there. Pretty easy, not too tough to figure out. Yeah, it's kind of tricky to get that sucker started, especially when you got kind of big hands like me. You have to basically get it in there, start the threads, and then tighten her down just like that. And then, so the aftermarket ones don't have the lug like that. The aftermarket ones actually have just a flat one, and this is the original one, and it works much better. All right, now I need to go find some screws for this because I don't think I have any. Okay, last thing to do here is tighten up the coil wire, and I think we're done. Just a note, if you have a tack, it goes on the negative there, but that is an overlay harness that goes to the firewall. This is not a factory tack car, so it doesn't have the factory hole in the dash, or the firewall, and we're not gonna put it on because it wasn't original to this car. Okay, just to wrap everything up, I'm gonna go backwards here. So these two are the horn wires right there. Brown wires to the washer bottle, which is, I still need to find mounting screws for that. I'll put that on in a minute. And then the two field wires go from the dual field on the alternator, single Wire right here goes to the post on the alternator. That is black. Purple wire with the sheath on it goes to the temp sender right there. This is for the distributor advance. Blue goes to coil, all goes back here. And then that is ballast resistor, dual wire there, single wire there. Voltage regulator right there. Goes back over there, clicks into the bulkhead connector, and then the fusible link goes to the starter relay. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy on these engine harnesses. There really isn't too much to them. And this is reverse wiring and some neutral safety stuff for 4-speed, which I still have to sort. Okay, washer bottle in and hooked up. So that's how you do a wiring harness on a 1970 Plymouth B-Body with a big block. Hope this helps some people out. Just want to thank everybody for watching. This is Tom from Rocket Restorations, and we'll talk to you soon.